Dry, hot weather is shriveling crops in the heart of America's farm belt and squeezing food prices here and around the world. Ray Suarez has our story.
The leaves aren't regrowing as quickly. They're getting burned.
That lament at a community kitchen in Indianapolis is being heard across much of the nation this summer amid the most extensive drought in decades. According to the National Climatic Data Center, more than half of the lower 48 states, seen here in yellow, orange, and maroon, were in moderate to extreme drought in June. The Rockies, Central Plains, and Ohio Valley were hardest hit. From March to June, those three regions received the least precipitation in the U.S. To make matters worse, the last 12 months were the hottest since record-keeping began in 1895. If it goes of the 30s or the droughts of the 50s, that was the last time so much of the country was so dry.
If we don't get rain in the next 5 to 10 days, there probably won't be anything here to harvest.
Nearly 40% of the U.S. corn crop is already in poor condition, and the projected harvest is steadily falling. That means less feed for livestock, and for consumers, rising prices for produce, meat, and other products that rely heavily on corn.
And we get two perspectives. Brian Fuchs is a climatologist at the National Drought Mitigation Center at the University of Nebraska. And David Beckman is a winner of the World Food Prize and president of Bread for the World, a nonprofit, nonpartisan Christian organization working to end hunger. Brian Fuchs, this growing season started with a lot of high hopes, the most extensive plantings in history and forecasts of a great crop. Did things abruptly get worse?
Well, we started the year off with a good planting season with great conditions to get the crop into the ground. And from that point on, things really became dry and the temperatures stayed elevated. Temperatures that have been quite warm as well. So I'll put those two together, and you do add a lot of stress to the crop as it is in that crucial pollination period where the yield is being set. So putting those two together in the grain belt, we are seeing a lot of the crop being stressed, and we are hearing of declines to the crop as we have moved forward over the last few weeks.
David Beckman, how does bad weather percolate through the food industry and change the prices we see at the checkout counter?
Well, I think in this country it'll have some impact probably next year, but actually modest impact because a lot of what we buy in the grocery store is packaging, marketing, transportation, manufacturing. So the price of grain really isn't going to affect dramatically our grocery prices. There'll be some change. The big impact is actually among the poorest people in the world, because poor people in the developing countries typically spend 2/3 of all of their income on one grain. So it's rice, maybe 2 plates of rice a day, or 2 plates of some sort of corn dish a day, or wheat. It's usually one grain, and that's 2/3 of their total income. So over the last month, the global price of grains has gone up 25%. If that gets translated into a 25% increase in what that local person can buy for corn, it means increased hunger. In 2008, when prices doubled in a year, 200 million people were driven into hunger around the world. So that's, to my mind, I hate what's happening to farmers and a lot of people whose lives are being disrupted in this country. But
do people realize how much of their food is really affected by those two key commodities, soy and corn? Does it have a sort of tumbling dominoes effect in the oils, in the sweeteners, in the other ingredients that make up foods that we don't even associate with grain?
Well, I think it takes an event like this current drought situation to really shed some light to the consumer of where their food comes from, and that trickle down of not only where the grains are being fed to different animals such as poultry and beef around the country, but also what that means as far as marketing goes and what areas of the country are being impacted. The more knowledge that consumers can gain and maybe they can understand a little bit more of where the food products are coming from, they'll understand that when the drought is impacting the Corn Belt, what it actually means to them as far as consumers go.
An unusually high number of farmers, Brian, are selling their livestock. Is it because they're finding it too expensive to feed them and water them?
What we have seen this year was a carryover of some of the drought conditions that were hitting the southern plains last year. In Texas and Oklahoma, many of the cattle ranchers down there needed forage, and so a lot of hay was shipped to the southern U.S. last year. And now in some of those same areas that delivered hay and forage last year, they're seeing drought.
Is there less give in the world food system than there used to be? Some food experts are referring to a post-surplus world where the number of mouths more closely matches the amount of food we're making. Does this kind of event, this unusual drought, worst in 56 years, put more people in risk than we even realize?
Well, the system has changed in that the world's population is growing. Countries around the world, helping poor farmers produce more, take advantage of higher prices to make a living and also meet local needs. That's something that the U.S. has actually led over the